Good morning. Hello.
Good morning, Diana.
Good morning. How's it going?
Good, and yourself?
Pretty good. Talking about which, give me a second, you guys. I forgot my coffee.
Morning.
We'll wait for you.
You have no choice.
Morning, everyone.
Good morning, happy Friday.
Yeah. Hey, by the way, how many times have some of you, like Carol and the other, how many times have you taken this class? You see, I'm an educator and I almost quit and it was my first time.
But it takes you so much time to learn this class. There's so many things to do it. You want to remove an object, you can move it by layers. You can do this. You can
I
do this.
know. I've been changing my artwork. That's why I wanted the class.
It just takes time to do it. You got to keep doing it and doing it. and doing it.
Exactly.
Well, the real clue.
Hey, sorry about that. I had left my coffee somewhere in the house and I didn't know where I had to go finding it. All right, guys.
We were chatting. Like, how many times have people taken your class?
Yeah,
Oh.
Diana.
And
Hello. And why I was struggling so much, and they've taken it 4 times. Give me a break.
But you know what? Can you imagine when you're here, the one that everyone's like, wow, she knows so much, you know?
No. I'm an educator, and you start where the student is. So in a class like this, when you have to shoot for the middle, it's hard. It's hard.
Yeah. I don't actually shoot for the middle. I try my best to be multi-level. I try to give a bit to everyone. But it's hard, you know, and at the beginning, the first few weeks of each class, I really do have to shoot for the beginners, and it's a bit harder on the ones who know more, but then it kind of catches up. So
There's so many ways to do things here. You want to remove an object, you can use channels to remove an object. You can use the other tools, but you know.
You know, actually, yesterday I was having some fun with some new tools that Photoshop has. And in a way, it's fun that, you know, to learn new things. And in another way, it's just one more, you know, sixth way to do the same thing. And sometimes it's better, and sometimes it's just a sixth way, right? There's no difference.
I have the 2022 version, and I was trying to find tools that my art teacher uses the 2021. And I finally got the IT lab, all those guys working, and we found them, but there's been a lot of changes already, even in the tool icon. So, you know, it's hard. It's hard. The wording is different.
2021 and 2022 have had more changes than many Photoshops had in the past.
That's right.
There's many new tools, and there are lots of, they're not new tools. Okay, don't get me wrong. The tool, actually, it's hard to explain the difference between a tool, but there's many new filters. There's many new ways that they're using artificial intelligence to have Photoshop do things for you. And so it's taking over some of the simpler ways of, well, not so simple, some of the more complicated ways of doing things from the past, that now a touch of a button might do, but still it's not any touch of any button, right? So yeah, it's interesting. By the way, welcome back, Jacob. We missed you.
Corrine, this is Bill talking.
Hi, Bill.
Hi, Corrine, for your information, I've been taking this class since CS2
Oh my God.
and CS7, and then I am still using this is Photoshop 2 and Photoshop 7. Then CS started. CS, I'm still using CS4. And for this class, I'm using Photoshop Elements 14.
basically what he's saying is he is using the older version and he
Yeah.
can do with his older version pretty much everything that we're doing, even with new tools. You
So
just,
far.
there's an older way of doing things because, you know, professionally we had to cut hair. Now you can cut hair easily. We had to
Yeah.
replace guys. Now you can replace them more easily. We had to, you know, we just had to do everything the longer and harder way.
Yeah.
And then as there is more ease in doing things that before took a long time, now there's new things. It's like, ooh, now I can do this, now I can do that, right? So it's a
Got it.
never ending learning experience.
Thank you for sharing that. I appreciate both of you. Jake, is it Jacob? Or who just said that? Who just
Bill.
shared?
Yes.
Bill. Oh, Bill, you're on Piggies.
Mhm.
Bill. Okay, thanks a lot, guys.
Yeah.
All right, so well, welcome back to all of you guys, no matter how many times you've taken the class, once or 10. Some of you just can't like imagine Friday mornings without seeing my smiling face. And other ones of you are like, can't wait to learn enough to not have to come back.
Was there a class
So-
last Friday? Was there a class last Friday? It was supposed to be a holiday.
Was there a what?
Was there a class last Friday? It was supposed to be a holiday.
No, last Friday was not a holiday. In the past, Fridays and Mondays were President's Day and Valentine's Day, but this year it got 2 Mondays.
Changed.
We had 2 free Mondays. We had last Monday and the Monday and this Monday,
But I
which
looked at
since
the
it's not
calendar-
our classes, we never were affected.
Because I looked at their calendar and their calendar said Friday, Saturday, so I didn't come for Friday because I didn't think you'd be here. Then I saw that, then I saw you were there.
I was. Yeah,
But
I think
got the
because
free
of all
copies for-
the, I'm not sure if that changed because of all the shifting in calendars, or if this is because, you know, because of the whole COVID and the shifting calendars, or if this is just this year it fell this way. I don't know, but they, instead of having a 4-day weekend, we had 2 3-day weekends in a row. But on Monday. So. All right, so let me go ahead and share with you guys, first of all, I want to share with you guys the Padlet, because a few of you guys found it useful to post some photos on it. And so that was great. I went and made comments on a lot of you guys. The thing is that my comments show up as anonymous most of the times, and now and then they show up with my name. Like here it has my name, and then before it said anonymous. So I tried to change that. Maybe it's because Midway would change did take. So the last few comments do have my name. Or maybe it's because some of the comments I did from my phone and some of my, I don't know, some from my computer. But anyway, so thank you guys. Unless you have a specific question that I want to, talk about in class, and if you have something in particular you want to point out, I really appreciate your attempts and the things that you have been posting. Okay, so please keep doing that. And again, if you have something that you'd wish me to speak to on Friday, or questions like that, for example, all of these different colors of this rose, that has to do with masking. And so I made some comments on the masking, and that's
Yeah.
awesome. And we're going to keep masking today and stuff like that. So yeah,
But I did better on the blue.
yeah,
Don't
much.
you think?
mhm.
I know
So
there's still
practice
a
makes
bit.
mm,
Yeah.
practice makes perfect, right?
Yeah.
So good job. And then Rashmi's not here, so I'm not gonna speak to it, but she posted a couple of other things that she's been working on, and that was great. So let me switch back now to Bridge, and here we go. So thanks for doing that. And if you tried and couldn't do it, then let me know. Oh, post the Padlet link. That's a good idea. Here we go. I did email the Padlet link as well. So if you go to the last email that I sent last week, you should have it in the past.
I just bookmarked mine. That.
Yeah.
link.
Good idea. All right. So there are a lot of reasons to do to learn how to do masking well. Moreover, one of the things that Photoshop did more than any other program was that you could be very precise and accurate in masking things. That then allowed you to completely alter an image. Now, this year, talking about big changes, one of the biggest changes is that Adobe Camera Raw and the same engine in Elements and in Lightroom is able to do masking. So this is pretty new for the last year or so. It was, I think, since in 2021, I think not just 2022, but the 2021 version, you can do some masking. So there's more you can do still at the raw level before you head into Photoshop. That said, the masking isn't yet developed to the level, and you can't be as accurate yet as you can be when you're inside of Photoshop. So that's another reason why there's all this development of other tools that you can do in Photoshop to go even further with your image, where you can begin to do a lot of the more, I'm going to say basic, but the more typical things that you would do to a photograph with lighting and coloring and things like that, just inside of RAW. Or RAW or Lightroom have the same tools. Okay, so for those of you who do Lightroom or not, and use the developer tools they're the same tools. They're presented a little bit differently, as Adobe Camera Raw and Elements also has them. So you can process your photos in any of those ways and then still need Photoshop, right? And one of the reasons you end up in Photoshop would be for more accuracy, more detail in that masking, more possibility of then combining images and compositing. So we're going to work a little bit more with masking so that we can begin to do a bit of that compositing. And sometimes that compositing, as I said before, is to make something look completely unreal, and other times it's to make it just look better. You can't tell that sky was not there. And other times, yeah, there's definitely not a possibility of that house floating on the ocean, right? So just two examples. So I want us to keep working with masking and to get a bit more understanding of all the breadth, because that masking is going to help us make someone have less wrinkles, have perfect skin. It's also going to help us have the perfect sky and the composite. So masking is pretty much the key to everything. So Ken, your hand is up. Is that a question about?
Well, I had a problem. I couldn't get to the Padlet because I couldn't export my image.
Mhm.
It said can't export to this location. So
Yeah, I
hoping it's
emailed
some-
you. Yeah, I emailed
Oh.
you. Check your email. But I replied, that's just because you were trying to save into this Photoshop shared drive. So when at the end of class, when I finalize the class's image and we save and we put the image, you have, since you're on VDI, you can't save to the same folder that we opened. You need to change over to my drive. So just follow the steps with me
Okay.
as I make us go into my drive. That's why you weren't able to save your files. Okay.
Okay, thanks.
This folder that I take the files from is available to save to only by me. When you try to save, it tells you that it's, yeah, what the message is, but the one that you quoted to me, okay,
Okay.
that you can't save to this thing. So, all right. So let me look at a couple of different images. We have this, I'm looking for, here we go. Down. And this guy right there. It starts with L, Lighten Shadows.
highlighter.
Okay, it's called Light and Shadows.
Still don't see it.
And if I hit the space bar, it's this little guy. Not so little. Okay,
Still don't see it.
so go by alphabetical order
Uh-huh.
and it's in the L's,
Oh, okay.
all right?
Oh,
Okay, so this is a JPEG. We're gonna go ahead and open it and it'll just open in Photoshop because it's a JPEG. So just double clicking on it works. Okay. So
Hmm.
here we go. Make this a little bit bigger. I'm gonna head over to our move or selection tool. And what? I'm not trying to move it. I'm just trying to do command one. Oh, I'm on VDI. Sorry. I keep getting my own computer is a piece is a Mac. And every time I come to VDI, the first few things I try to do, I try to use my shortcuts and then I get all confused and I have to go back to using the other ones. So so here we have an image that's, well, I don't know. I always like to, instead of me telling you what you're seeing, if you were to have taken this picture, what would you think and what might you want to do to it? And what's good, what's bad?
Deanna, I can't open it. I'm sorry, this is Carol.
Hmm. Are you on VDI?
No, I'm on my computer, but it
Uh-huh.
shows it's on iCloud. I can see the image, but when I click on it, I can't open it.
Well, did you put it in your documents or your documents are in iCloud or what?
Yeah, I had this problem the first class, but I couldn't get together with you and work. We'll work on it some other time.
Well, we're gonna work with this image for a while and a few more, so you can't get any of the images? I mean, you should be able to download.
I downloaded them and some of the images I can access, but this one I can't.
Okay, so just really quickly, if you go to, let me share a Finder window for a second. Say that you have, hold on. Say that you have a Finder window right now, and I don't know if you view them by icons or not, but if you have a little, and this is a Finder window, if you have a little cloud icon,
Uh-huh.
like right next to it, just click on that little cloud icon. That'll download it onto your computer and then you can open it.
Okay, thank you. I'll try that.
Okay. See if that
Probably
helps
change
you.
the change the shadow on his face, and the bridge in the background is kind of a distraction.
Okay. So let me let someone in. Hold on. There we go. All right. So here we go. So Charlie was mentioning that there's a shadow on his face, right? And he was also saying that there's a bridge there that's a distraction.
Yeah.
Right. I kind of heard you a little. I'm just put my sound on a little bit higher. I kind of heard. I just want to make sure that's what you had said. Okay. Yep. That's a very inconvenient shadow. You could consider the shadow the inconvenience or the highlight the inconvenience. Either way, there's too much contrast in the lighting on his face to make it a comfortable photo to look at. I'm not so bothered by the bridge myself because it's so blurred out. But yeah, it doesn't make for a great, background. So you're welcome to try to change that as possible, but I hadn't actually thought about that as a problem. More to me, the problem is the bright, suddenly a bright area over here or over here that's calling my eyes. But yeah, I guess that's a good point to it. Sometimes you don't see something until someone mentions it to you, and then you can't stop seeing it. All right. What else does anyone think about this photo? Is that mainly the issue? Remember that we want to go to controller command 100%. So to check what?
focus.
Let's see, is this guy in focus? What do you think?
The whiskers are pretty clear.
Mm-hmm.
His
Yeah.
wrinkles in his eyelid is pretty clear.
Yeah, I would say that this is tack sharp. I mean, come on, you can see every little beard on his hair. This is very, look at, you can almost pluck at every one of these hairs. There is definitely a lot of focus in here. That is not a problem with this image. Okay. I would venture to say, in fact, that some people might want a little bit less focus to not show every single wrinkle in your face, if you know what I mean. Not that you need to look like a model, but there's a place where you can look exactly how you look, but maybe the harsh light makes the deep color inside the wrinkles show much more starkly. There's this trend, not that this photo is that trend, the gritty urban look where you see photos where everyone is really craggy features, and that's exaggerating, making the dark wrinkles even darker and the lights lighter so that every single little thing that's on skin occurs. Well, most of the times when you see a beauty feature or model, it's the exact opposite. It's lightening all those shadows, and so that the wrinkles are there, the bags under the eyes are there, but just there's less contrast in the light, and that's all it takes for things to look just not there, but just gentler, right? Okay. Any other comments about this photo?
Well, I had a question about this.
Mhm.
Is there a way to like raise his eyelid? The one
Mhm.
eye is open more than the other. Is there a
Mhm.
way to raise the eyelid?
Mhm.
Um,
Yes and no. If this is the only photo you have of him, probably not. What you can do is you can replace this eye with that one, right? But first you'd have to do a lot of work with shadows for that to work, because of course there's such a different contrast that unless you even out the lighting, then you might be able to replace one eye for another and it would still look like it's him. Or you took 2 or 3 photos in the same place, and at one point he might have been like kind of exclaiming, oh, and so then you see his eyelid lit up. On the other hand, there's a chance that this is just his face, because it wouldn't make sense to change his eye. Like if this were a generic portrait of someone, you could do that. But if it's a portrait of a specific person, maybe that's how his eyelid droops, and it would make no sense to change it. So you always have to consider that kind of stuff. But no, you can eliminate wrinkles, you can kind of raise it, but if the eye isn't there, it's not there. So the only thing you can do in this case would be to take this eye, flip it over, and adapt the lighting, and then have 2 eyes that are the same, or bring one from another photograph where he might have had a big another expression on his eye.
okay.
Mhm. All right, so we're gonna continue learning a little bit of masking, and let me show you now this photo after it's gone through a little bit of camera raw processing. I'm going to switch over here. So this is the photo that you're seeing, and this is with camera raw processing. Okay, so this is just camera raw, right? Where you can just focus on the different colors of this cheek over that cheek. Okay, so from there to there, that's quite a difference, right? So the colors have been even out. You can make it even more identical, but there's a place where you want some shape or some shadow. And then also in this case, in this version of Camera Raw, I also played around with colors in the sky and just some tones to give the skin a different tone and to give the colors more vibrance and stuff like that. And then actually, let me go to 100%. So here's the before and here's the after, and this was just Camera Raw. And then I did a little bit of what's, the beauty effects of what I was saying, where from before and after, it's still the same person, but just everything's slightly softer. Right? It's not like he's looking like he's, doesn't have the same wrinkles he has. It's not like he doesn't look like the person he is, but there's just a little bit less emphasis on the stuff. So for everything that I've done here at the beginning, that's just Camera Raw. And then this depends on masking, okay? So that's an example of what we can do with this photo. So we're gonna do a little bit of that. So I'm gonna share.
Diana, I have a question.
Yeah.
Usually the photo would open up in Photoshop. Remind me again, what was the upper bar where we go to Camera Raw?
This is not going into Camera Raw first.
Oh,
This is,
okay.
we're gonna do from inside of Photoshop.
Okay.
So I'm trying to teach you how to use Camera Raw 2 different ways. So Camera Raw can be used directly from Bridge,
Mhm,
or you can be already inside of Photoshop and use it inside of Photoshop as a filter, okay?
mhm.
So right now, since I had you guys open it in Photoshop, we're just gonna use it in Photoshop as a filter. So
Okay.
the first day we did this, the second day, we did it from Bridge, and now we're gonna do it inside of Photoshop again. Camera Raw is available both ways. The only time that you can do it only through Bridge is when you originally have a raw image. Then when you open a raw image, the photograph is a raw image, then it goes straight into Adobe Camera Raw to process before you go into Photoshop. I mean, you could choose to go straight into Photoshop and then do it in there, but in this case, we're gonna do it from inside. I think a lot of people felt intimidated when I started teaching raw because they didn't have raw photos, and so now I'm trying to show that you can apply it to any photo, before or after, in or out of Photoshop. So I just want you all to see the value in processing with Camera Raw. So in those examples that I showed you before, I did not do anything about the bridge, Charlie. I'm sorry. So you can also give us ideas of how you would have handled Camera Raw if you were, sorry, the image where you had, we could have cropped it. We could have, I just went on the colors and stuff, but you could have just done a smaller portrait just of around him, et cetera, to eliminate that bridge, or you could have changed the background. All right. So let's go ahead, and one of the things that I brushed upon that I told you about without being without spending too much time on it is I've just taught you how to create a smart object, but I haven't really explained smart objects. So just out of for you guys to understand what you're doing more, when you turn something into a smart object, you are in a way protecting it from being altered. So it is a way to work with an image in a non-destructive modification kind of way. Now, when you do that, there's certain things that can't be done to the image anymore easily, but for the most part, they can still be done with a little workaround. But we do that to protect an image. If I were to do something to this image from the beginning in such a way that I blow out the highlights on his cheek, for example, and I do it permanently in a destructive way, then when I try to fix it, that'll just be gone and lost forever. Right now, I still have detail on his cheek. So if I'm going to do anything to this face, I would prefer to keep it protected so that what I've got stays there. And I can always go back to the original pixels if I want to move forward, because it'll be more powerful. So to start, one thing that no one mentioned, so let me go back here, is that even though there's a lot of contrast between his dark and light side of his face, there's one big thing that's missing here. Someone who might be a little bit more advanced in my Photoshop classes, can you tell me something that's missing? It's something that I taught you guys already though, so anyone, any level can figure it out. If you look at the different tools I've shown you, there's a big something missing here. And you can see it. If you can't like tell with your eyes, you can use one of the tools I taught you out of the first few classes. I can't hear you, Peggy. I see your mouth moving, but I can't hear you.
The histogram?
Thank you. I can always count on Peggy.
Yeah.
Yes, check out that histogram and tell me what's missing in this photograph.
Black.
There's no black. Looking at this, you go, what do you mean there's no black? There's some black back there, some black back there. Nope, it's muggy, dark gray. And if at all you want to check that out, you can see here in the histogram that there's, let me put the little bright spotlight. Here we go. So over here, here's my mouse. I'm heading over to the histogram, which is way over here. And it's not covering the full spectrum. All of the histogram is heading all the way to the right, and then it stops right there, and it's missing the dark black tones, which is what makes this a weird photo, because not only does it have this big contrast, but it still isn't a very contrasty image because it's missing black. Okay, so I just wanted to point that out. We could either fix this right here with adjustment layers or stuff, but since we're going to head into raw, we can just fix it in raw. As I said, there's 80 ways. Was it someone was saying, Charlie was saying there's 80 ways to fix that. And I've shown you levels, there's curves, there's just so many different ways, but we're going to go into raw. So I just wanted you to notice that not only do we go to 100% to look at a photo, but we also go to the histogram and take a peek and figure out what's happening there. Okay, so we don't have blown out whites. We have very near to blown out whites, but not really. But we do have a lack of having any black in the image. All right, so we're going to first convert this into a smart objects to protect it. So we're going to head up to filter. And bizarrely enough, instead of calling it convert for smart object, it just calls it convert for smart filter. It means exactly the same thing. It's just a thing they, I believe, just makes it confusing because if you were to go to layer, you could convert an image to a smart object. You could say create convert to smart object. That is exactly the same thing as going into filter and convert for smart filters. So just click on that. It lets you know that the layer will be converted into a smart object. See, that's the same exact thing. And when you say okay, the only way you can tell that this has been turned into a smart object is because if you look at your little icon down here, you see a little box down here. You see that? It's not that easy to see, but that tells us that this is now a smart object. On top of that, notice that from background, it changed to layer 0. So now we have a layered file. If I were to try to save this already, I could not save it as a JPEG. Smart objects can't be saved as a JPEG. All right, so now that we've protected this layer, now we can go up to filter and find the camera raw filter from up here. So Bill, what you can do is you can open it up from Bridge into Camera Raw to get to this place. Okay, for anyone who's working with an old, I believe right now it's only Bill. Is someone else working on CS6 or CS5? I think it's only Bill or Elements. Thomas? Yeah, so what you do is go to Bridge, go to Bridge and right click and open in Camera Raw, so that you will do the same processing to this image that we're doing inside of Photoshop. You will do first through Bridge, and then when you're done, we'll just say okay, and you'll have to say open in Photoshop, and then we'll be in the same spot, except for you will have an image that has been modified as your beginning layer, and we'll still have the flexibility of changing it. All right, so did that work, Thomas and Bill? You're able to open it in Camera Raw? Okay, great. So now back here, so we're gonna go ahead and say camera raw filter. Hello, I've done it a few times. There it is. Wow, it was taking its time. It was deciding to have, it also left its morning coffee far out.
Sorry,
somewhere.
Diana. Could you
Yeah.
please just quickly tell me how to do that smart object?
Mhm.
Thank you.
So I'm gonna cancel. So you go to filter and convert for smart filters.
Filter, and then what?
Choose convert for smart filters.
Okay,
Then go back to filter and choose camera raw filter.
and then go back.
And then
Okay, thank you.
you're welcome. So now we're applying camera raw as if it were a filter, which is another of the types of tools that we have in Photoshop. The filters are one of them. Inside of this camera raw, we can do masking now, which in the past was very basic. It's getting much more much easier. In fact, we could try that on this one. We can try a little bit of masking on this one, but we'll do a little bit later. Let's just go ahead and click here where it says 100%, because we want to really focus on his face to get as much of his face as we can in this image. If you need to make the window bigger or whatever you need. Now, if some of you guys have this, I always forget what the shortcut is to get, I just pull it up, but one of you guys showed me what the, some of you, now I can't do it. I never remember the shortcut. There's, somebody, hello. If you don't have it, that's fine. But there's a bar that you might have here occupying a bunch of your screen. And you can get rid of it, but I don't have it right now. And I don't even remember how to call it up because I don't use it. Oh, well, if you don't have it, it's not a problem. I was trying to show you how to get rid of it by opening it up, but I can't open it up, so it doesn't matter.
I'm
right.
sorry, Deanna.
Yeah,
After smart filters, what was I supposed to open?
now
Well-
you go to back to the same filter menu at the top and then choose camera raw filter.
Thank you.
Cool, so that means you were able to open the photo.
Yeah, finally.
Great. Dorothy, you have a question?
I was thinking I couldn't see the edit and all of that stuff, but now I moved the screen and I can do it.
You're on the right, yeah.
Yeah,
And
now I see it.
cool. Now, most of you start this way. Most of you see the basic opened up like that. But in case you have used other tools that have been playing around, know that these are all the different tools we have in Camera Raw over here. And in fact, we have some more over here. So when you want to say go to calibration and you've got basic open, it's kind of a long scroll down to have everything open. So ideally you can close a tool and then open another tool, right? And then close calibration and then open color mixer and then close color mixer and open curves, closing curves, okay? So consider trying.
Because then I'm not here most of the day.
Okay, who's,
And
someone's
Tuesday,
talking,
right?
let me mute, there we go. All right, so just practice that. Click on this little arrow to make things bigger and smaller, just to become kind of comfy with how it goes. Now notice that as I put my mouse over here, I'm getting these little like videos that try to teach me stuff, I guess, because every time I open Photoshop, it thinks it's the first time I've done it in VDI. So it gives me that little video, but you can just ignore that. All right, so we are going to start with this basic one here. So let's go ahead and head over here. And see, when I hover over temperature here, it gives me a little video on the right telling me what's temperature and what's tint, and that bugs me. But I guess when you're not with me, go ahead and click on that and use them to learn, because they're little videos that take you to allergies this morning. I'm trying to sneeze. All right. So
Oh, Diana,
yeah.
they can turn that off by going up to the gear and changing it.
Yeah, I when you're comfortable, I always keep mine on because I'm teaching people for whom it's the first time you need to see it. But you can get rid of it from the gears over here, or you can go, when in Photoshop, you have those same things. You can go to the preferences and turn it off if they bug you. But if this is the first few times that you're doing this, I recommend keeping it on, and actually when they turn on, clicking on that little guy, because it takes you to little videos where it teaches you that tool. Once you know all your tools, go ahead and go to the gears here, which lets you do preferences for camera raw and turn that kind of stuff off. But they're meant for beginners, and you guys are, many of you, beginners. And so it kind of shows you how to move the bar and what to do with that tool. Okay, but once you turn them off, you turn them all off. So if there's one tool you know, but not the rest, you might want to just ignore them, and they just don't do anything. They just show you something. All right. So my first concern here would be to recover some of those blacks that are missing. So I'm going to head down to the blacks, and I'm going to go ahead and start moving this. Remember that you take away or you add according to how you move it. And if you don't like where you've got, you just double click on one of these guys and it goes back to center. Okay, so it's very easy to just play around with one or with another and then just go, I want to see it go back to center. Right. So say that I want to make my blacks a little bit blacker. I'm going to move to the left. Now here's the problem. Who's to say that that black is black enough and not going and clipping? There's one thing that we turned on early on, which is this little thing. You know, I had told you guys to click on this so that it shows you this bright blue when it becomes clipped. And then I think in the highlights or in the whites, I had you turn on this thing so it goes red when you're clipping your whites. But what if you don't have them on? What if these aren't on? And what if you don't want them on? Then, and by the way, to turn them on, all you had to do was click them a while ago and then they stay on. But there's something else you can do here. You could just want to push this all the way until the black is black, but not know when the black gets to black to black without texture, without detail. So the thing you should do is hold down your Alt or your Option key while you're moving the tool. And what looks to be happening is that something went wrong because the whole thing went kind of white, right? But just watch this piece. But what I'm going to do then is I'm going to, while I'm holding down Alt or Option, I'm going to move this to the left until I begin to see some spots appear on the screen. There it is. Lots. I back off, and I back again until I see some spots, in particular in that area that I knew where the black was. Once I see that spot, those spots I let go. So once again, I'm in the white, I move over to the left, and at some point I'll start seeing some spots. If I keep going, I'll see a ton. So then I back off again, I back off until those spots disappear, and then I go back until I finally find that spot where those black spots appear. Now notice that they're showing up in many different colors, and that's because that's the point where the yellow hits black without detail, or the red hits black without detail, or the blue hits black without detail. So you hit that spot where you can, barely see them, and you know that that's where you need to stop. Let go of your mouse and your Alt Option, and now you know you've taken the black to deep blackest black. And I know that my one place that I have my darkest black is going to be in these lines because that's the first stuff that appeared. And then the next is over here, and then here in his mouth. Those were the things that appeared. Did that work for you guys?
Mm-hmm.
It helps versus trying to just guess. Do I have black there? Well, you don't need to guess. You can just use that little tool. You can also decide that you want to do that for the whites. I don't want to take the whites to that right now, but I could do the same thing. Hold down the Option key, grab my whites, start moving it to the right. And in this case, the screen starts black. And very quickly, because we have white without detail much sooner, we begin to see those little spots. Now, since I'm not seeing the entire image, if I'm going to be doing this to the entire image, let me hit fit, because the problem with getting up to just his face is that I need to look at this, which is my whitest white. And if I start moving to the right, I will see, I'll hold down the option key, alt and option key and start moving this guy to the right. Hello. Okay. My mouse is not wanting to. My computer is reached some kind of a, I am too busy to work for you this morning, Deanna. And let's give it a rest and try again. All right, not wanting to do anything for me. Will it even cancel? No. How about escaping? No, that won't work either. Oh my, oh my. Okay. Am I pushing my computer? All right, that's not good. Not good at all. All right, I might have to, I'm gonna definitely stop sharing, which is the first thing that makes things not work. Let me try again now. No. I have to close my, okay, so I'm opening my VDI again, guys. Give me a sec. Meanwhile, if you have any questions, Dorothy, your hand is up. I can't hear you.
Why would you hold down the option key versus using the little guides that show you when your blacks are coming in?
Which guides, the sliders, you mean?
Yeah, well, the sliders and
Or
you've
the
got
blue and
the blue and reds that come in.
you
What's the
can. It's just a different way to do the same thing. So
It does the same thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
say that, okay, my computer, my VDI computer is telling me that Photoshop is a kernel problem and it needs to close. So sending report. So I'm saying don't send. So this is all my VDI one. So I'm restarting Photoshop. So give me a sec while I do that, and then I'll share my screen. So it's just, as I said, many different ways to do the same thing. And say that you don't want to have those two little things turned on to see the big blues and the big regs that show up. And you're just trying to move the slider and you just want to make sure that you're getting it right. You hold down the option, move the slider, and it's just a different way
Okay.
of
Yes.
achieving the same purpose. Mhm.
Thank you. guys.
Remember, there's 85 ways of doing something in Photoshop. That's just, the other one is using your eyes, putting in the measurement tool. Okay, Photoshop is up again, but the image is starting from 0. Fortunately, we had not done too much to it. So I am able to share my screen. All right, did everyone go to the chat? Before I share my screen, I think it's easier for you guys to find it. Go to the chat and give a little hello to tell me that you are here. And yeah, I'm operating my. There we go. And share. Okay. So now I'm going to go. I was just trying to show you how the same thing happens on the whites, but you saw it, so I'm not going to do that. Okay. By the way, I'm not hoping or expecting you to follow my own steps. You've already been in RAW a few times. I am happy to walk you through what I would do to this image, but we've done this a few times. So please, you know, not what's the not lash out, jump out on your own. There's a word for that. A strike out on your own as if you were at home and, you know, try to do it yourself. But in analyzing this, I am noticing that now that I've brought my blacks to a good spot, I want to lighten all the shadow side of him. And so I'm going to grab the shadows and I'm going to move the shadows to the right. Remember, there's no, some people always want formulas. This is something that's maybe missing in this conversation, is that what we're doing post-processing is an artistic process. And some people are going to want to leave the image at one level. Some people are going to leave it at another level. There is something that's considered color correct skin tone, yada, yada. And then there's the people who just want to make it look for an editorial of about how, you know, you can change the mood of a photo if you make it very blue or if you make it very warm to fit the story that you're trying to tell, right? And so that part is artistic. There's no correctness to that. There's just what you believe this image needs to have. And whatever you believe it needs to have is as good as what you believe. So I'm going to move the shadows. First, I'm going to go all the way to the right to see what happens. Sometimes when you move things to the extreme, things start to break down. You need to make sure it's not. You need to make sure you're not clipping whites. You know, you need to keep your eyes on this histogram. This is when these highlight warnings are better or useful to have them on, because if you're not paying attention to the background right now, these things being on would have warned you. And so if you go all the way to the right, how are we feeling? Is that might be a bit too much? I'm gonna move over here to the left. Just a little bit less. I'm gonna go ahead and work on these highlights now and see if maybe I've got the highlights and I have the whites. Let's see which one affects it more. I'm gonna darken the highlights a bit, and I'm looking at his face. And I'm going to go all the way to the right and then to the middle again to see the difference. And you have to kind of try to imagine that you're not seeing all the background and that you're just focusing on only the effect that you're trying to achieve, which right now I'm just trying to see his skin. This is too bright and shiny. So I'm going to go straight down to the very end of the highlights. And I'm going to look at that. And yeah, I think that's got some pretty nice skin texture there. But maybe I'll bring it back to the middle and check what whites does. And I'm going to move the whites down. And that one also affects it. It looks a little bit duller. So maybe a combination of both instead of the full measure of both. So I'm going to bring some whites down to the left. And then maybe I'm going to bring some highlights down to the left. And that, if I just look at that, that's looking kind of good. As far as skin tones, maybe bring the highlights down a little bit more.
Excuse me. So Deanna, so are you saying we have some clipping in the background? We can ignore that since we're focusing on him and his face?
No, if it depends. If you're going to crop out the background, yes. But if you have clipping in the background, I didn't get to clipping in the background yet. But if you have some, you have to, and you're not going to crop out the image, then you need to deal with it.
Okay.
So did you get it with going to black or going to, so over here, I'm at -64. If I go all the way to the end, I get clipping on his face. So that's not good. But when I back up and take it off, it actually doesn't clip in the backgrounds more than his face. So that, you know, it means that I can still move up a little bit, but I think the whites, on the other hand, if I move the whites over to the right, I get a lot of clipping in the background. I move the whites over here, and if I lighten the whites, that's only in the background, right?
Right.
So should it bother me or not? Yes. If I'm going to print this entire photo, I'm going to have a big, stark, just paper white in that area when I print this photo. And that's going to, the way our eyes work, human eyes are really attracted to, and they do all these tests with, you know, little people measuring movements of eyes. But if you look at a photograph and it's got texture, and then suddenly there's this blank spot with no texture, which is just paper, our eyes are really drawn to it. Ooh, nice, shiny, bright things. And so we'll just go and stare at those spots more than we will at the face. It'll overpower that. So you want to avoid that. So be careful. Yeah, when you're in at 100%, you might not have noticed that your whites went off, and that's why you need to go kind of back and forth until you're comfy and move the whites. But in this case, I actually wanted to bring the whites even lower down. I wasn't moving to the right because I was trying to equalize the size of his face, so I wasn't anywhere near. But if had you gone to the right side of the whites or the highlights, then you would have, yeah, affected the background.
Thank you.
All right. So Dorothy, I'm not sure, is that a new hand or is it the same one from before? If it's the same one from before, I can lower it. I just want to make sure that, that it wasn't a new question.
I thought I lowered it.
Oh, that's, what happened then is that I lower it after I talked to you and then you probably tried to lower it.
Yeah.
But since I had lowered it, you raised it again. So
Okay,
sorry.
thanks.
That's because I'm automatically accustomed, people forget to lower, so I just lower people's hands after they talk. And so you went to do the job and then you undid it because I had preempted you. Sorry about that. No, I'm sorry. Okay. All right, so I've been working with the shadows and the whites right now, and I'm kind of happy with that. Just the face part. I might want to, whoops, I didn't mean to do that. I need to go back to 100%. I might want to see if all of the exposure needs to be raised or darkened now that I've evened them out a little bit. So you can also try and decide, well, do I want it to be all of it a bit darker, all of it a bit lighter? People tend to do that afterwards. And so this is more of a caution. Look what's happening up there. Okay, as I move this exposure thing over, everything is moving to the right or to the left. Okay. So I highly recommend that this one be used very cautiously, if ever at all. I'm going to double click to put it back in the center. And unless something really is out and very, very flat, very, very dark or very, very light, to kind of avoid that one. And contrast, you can use a little bit more comfortably than exposure, a little bit more, but it's that same idea. What we just did here, we basically changed the contrast. We moved the whites in the shadows, highlights to one side, the shadows to another. But in this case, the blacks had to be darkened too. So contrast would have messed that up, right? We needed to do the finer tuning, because contrast would have just lightened the lights or darkened the lights and lightened the blacks, which, you know, might have worked, but they needed different amounts. Okay. So, so it's better to use these 4 instead of these 2. They accomplish the same purpose and gets you more detail. All right. How are we doing now? Anyone have questions up until now? Check the fit to see if you messed anything out there. And let's see what we did. Go here to this little before and after. There's another way of toggling since right now. The only thing we've operated on is this basic, and I closed it for you guys to see. There's an eyeball here that's dark and these are not. That means I haven't used any of these yet. I've only used this one. Okay. So if I just want to see the effects of what I did in all of just the basic setting, I can click here, hold down, and that shows me before and after. Before and after. Now, right now, I had told you the other day, you can go to this little toggle to go to the before and after as well. The thing about the before and after here is that, say that I've also do something here, something here, something here, then this before and after will turn them all off and all on, versus this will only turn on and off the changes on that one panel. Okay, so this becomes, now we're going to be using a few of the other panels. So now this becomes a more detailed way of doing it before and after, just to see what this panel changed and what this panel changed or what that panel changed, versus this will always show you the whole entire before and after. Okay.
No. I couldn't see where you changed it on the right side on the panel.
Let me get I forgot to get my spotlight again. So you mean that little eyeball, hold it down. That's your before, let go. This is your after. Before,
Okay.
hold it down,
Got you.
let go,
Yeah,
it's
thank
your
you.
after. But when it's open, it's still there, right? Hold
Thank
it
you.
down, before and after.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. So before I move on to any of the other tools that we have down here or in the bottom, is there any question about this? Does everyone feel that it's okay? Do you think you need to pull it even more? Are you happy with it before and after?
Deanna, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Now I don't like his forehead.
Mhm. So this is the kind of stuff that we cannot do anything really in Camera Raw or in Lightroom or whatever. You can bring out a little adjustment brush. We can do that, but this is much easier handled in Photoshop, inside of Photoshop with layers. That set, you know, like this little splotch is what you're talking about, right?
Well, yeah, you've lightened his cheek, but now right above it, his head is still shadowed.
Yeah.
His forehead.
Well, I lightened his cheek and his forehead and everything that's light because it all lightened. But even though I lightened the shadows, my shadows were there before, there was already a stark contrast there. And though the shadows moved all the way to the right, doesn't really fix the entire photo. We're just doing as much as we can in RAW.
Okay.
Right? Now, can we do more? Yes. But one thing about shadows is, although you could technically eliminate them completely, for the most part, it doesn't really work well. Most of the times what you do is you alleviate a shadow. You lighten a shadow, you soften a shadow. And there's, I again, talk about bazillions of techniques to deal with shadows. In fact, this photo I used to process way in the past, just with levels and curves. Now I'm doing it with this technique. But you reach a limit and then you move on to, well, what else can I do to it? And in this case, we're going to move on to the what else can I do to it, right? Inside here of RAW, I could work a little bit of an adjustment in there, but the question would be, would you then darken the forehead to match this? Or do you want to continue lightening the forehead, right? Because that is probably a tree, a spot of light. It's not like, you know, something, it needs to be evened out, but which is the right choice, to make it darker or to make it lighter? It's easier, much easier to make this darker so that it matches the forehead than it is to make this little kind of shark tail or shark fin shape lighter, because you get to the point when you lighten skin too much, it just starts looking really fake. So it might be easier to darken it all, and then you just deal with that unevenness. The photo is a bad photo, right? So we're just trying to make the best out of a photo that maybe is the only photo you have of Uncle John, or, you know, he passed away and you got to make it better. It's easy to make really good photos look amazing. There's never hard. But a lot of times what's really hard is to make a photo that's not good look good, and it taxes our skills much more. And that's what we've got here. We've got a photo that's not good at all, and we're just trying to figure, you know, it's taken in bad lighting with a very bright background. The only thing that's its favorite is that it's very sharp, but other than that, there's not much to say for this photo, other than it might be a loved one, right? So we need to do our best with it. And I would venture to say that if this got evened out, it would be better. And then you have this little streak going up the edge of that, which is bizarre little like intrusion. So we're going to have to deal with that. And this we can deal with in ACR and here in Adobe Camera Raw. But that is something you can only deal with in Photoshop because it's too targeted. Okay. So when I say you could deal with this here in Camera Raw, what you would have to do would be adjustment brushes, which is something we have up here. And I'm just going to avoid that right now because I'd prefer to show you some techniques for masking in Photoshop. So again, as all the choices that we have, I'm going to choose to do that with masking. All right. Because that'll also help me deal with that little guy. All right. So then I'm going to go back to, for the next set of 3 choices here, 100% view is the only one we can have. So let's click back to 100% if you haven't yet, because these all are going to, in one way or another, change the way you see the detail, the way you see focus. And as this name says, texture will enhance texture. How does texture get enhanced? By darkening the shadows and lightening the highlights of texture to make it more textured. Or that's if you go to the right, or changing the contrast to make it less textured. You guys, do you think this photo needs more texture?
No,
Probably not.
Mm.
How about less texture?
yes.
Let's see. So more texture would mean moving it to the right, and I'm gonna make this look, you know, very much more textured. This is a very in look right now to make things really graphic and gritty and very textury. And it's not like the photographer is any better than any photographer or has a more sharper lens. They just pull up the texture, they just pull up the clarity, and the photos look like this. So for some things this might work. I certainly don't think it helps him at all. So I'm going to double click and bring it down to 0. Let's see what happens if I go the other way. I'm going to go all the way to the left on texture. What do we see here? He's kind of looking like he's made out of plastic, right? So the extremes of any of these things are bad. You're going to want to see if maybe going down a little bit, it helps. And the reason I don't think I would do this to his face right now, even if I go just a little bit, is because this is a global correction. And while I don't mind losing some texture on the scragginess of the skin, it's losing it everywhere. And you never really want to lose good stuff that's in the eyes. So I'm going to say that I'm not going to move the texture downwards. And instead, I can do something just like that in Photoshop, where I can do it to his face, and then I can mask it out in the areas where I still want the extreme sharpness. Like I want to keep the extreme sharpness in his eyes. Anytime you do something here, it's global. And then everything loses that tack stuff. And so the one thing this photo has is that it's tack sharp. So I'm not going to move it. I'm choosing not to move the texture here and to do something about texture in Photoshop with masking. Clarity is similar, only it acts in a different amount of detail. So if I move, again, clarity all the way to the right, look at how much more gritty things get, but this time it gets more, he almost looks more dirty. It works similarly to texture, but instead of just on texture, it also affects color more than clarity does, more than texture does. So again, if I go to the left on clarity, I get this weird hazy kind of thing. So that's extreme. I'm basically saying in this photo, we don't need neither texture nor clarity. There is something to be said maybe for dehaze. I'm going to back up a little bit so you see the whole image. Dehaze sometimes works when there's a need for less contrast, and this is a very contrasty background, so we can try it. I don't know. Adding dehaze or taking away dehaze affects our histogram. Everything affects our histogram, okay? So you have to be careful. So you might want to say, well, what if I dehaze a little bit here? Would that help with that contrast? And yeah, I do think it lightens the contrast a little bit. How about if I add a tiny bit? Sometimes depends on how I'm seeing it. Sometimes let me go back to 100%. I just wanted to make sure nothing happened weird in the background. Add a little bit of dehaze. I'm not sure that on this photo, any of these are really making the effect that's worthwhile, an effect that's positive. I think it's just losing something on all of the photo, and the little that's good we want to keep. So I'm just going to stop right there. I'm not gonna keep working with that. So, but that's my choice. But as I said, if you found a setting that you prefer, that you think you like better, then keep going. And again, based on what Sue said, this is not the end all, okay? There's more to do in Photoshop. This is not that we're leaving the photo ready to go. We're just doing the best we can in here with this photo. Some of you might have reached a better, what you consider is better with your choices. Please, if you have something very different you want to share that you like, please share with me. Nothing's wrong. This, as I said, it's an artistic process. Now, vibrance or saturation are for color. So if I head down again to 100%, Not so much, we want to change his skin tones, but color here would be
Good morning, Judy.
his sweater or the sky, right?
Okay.
So I'm gonna stop, mute you, Carol. There we go. Remember that if you guys pick up your phone or people walk in the room, please mute yourselves. So vibrance is going to give us an enhancement only on the stuff that's less less saturated, versus saturation is going to give us enhancement on everything. So let's just try first what happens when I saturate with saturation, and I move it to the right, and all the colors get saturated. And one thing that happens is that it totally destroys skin tones. Okay, so saturation wreaks havoc on skin tones. As you can see immediately, no matter how little bit of saturation I add, his skin begins to turn orange. So when there's skin tones, you probably need to avoid saturation almost completely. If you head over to the left on saturation, what you do is you lose color, and ends up at the very end of it, it's black and white. This is not the best way to do a black and white though. I'm just gonna show you the opposite of, it's not light or dark, it's intensity of color. That's what hue saturation gives you. So let's bring that one to the middle. Vibrance, on the other hand, is similar, but it's meant to protect skin tones. So now when I start moving to the right, it'll enhance the blues are going to look blue, or the aquas are going to look more aqua. But notice how his skin is not taking that horrible orange color. That said, if I push it all the way to the end, it still is. I mean, there's a limit of how much it can protect it. But even then, at its very extreme of vibrance, it didn't get as bad as the very extreme of saturation got. So you can add a little bit of vibrance in here without ruining his face color if you think it needs it or not. Now I'm going to show you other ways to work with color, so we don't need to necessarily do that here. But yeah, I mean, if I weren't going to work with color and other stuff, maybe I might add some vibrance to give this a little bit less of a faded look. But I'm going to not do that right now. I'm going to double click to put vibrance down, because I'm going to work with color out here a little bit, just to have us work with some other of the tools and not just the basic ones. All right, so now I go on and off by toggling this to see what I've done before and after. There it is, before and after. Close this down. There we go, and toggle it before and after. That is where I'm going to leave the basic set. Before I go into Photoshop, there's a couple of other things I can do. I wanted to show you, for example, the color mixer. By the way, detail is where we would do sharpness, and I don't think there's anything we need to do with sharpness, but here there's also noise reduction. And noise reduction is something that is very, very important to do here in Camera Raw, because Camera Raw is the very best at noise reduction, way better than any tool inside of Photoshop. So definitely noise reduction is something we need to do in here. So what is noise? Well, normally if you look into the deeply shadowed areas of an image, you would see if there's any noise. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start zooming in to the, I'm going to go ahead and click in here and zoom maybe 400%. Ideally, you would go much more than 100% for things, but I'm going to try to see if I can show you noise in this image. He's got so much texture on this skin that it'll be hard to show you noise this way. There is noise in this image, but because of all the texture, it's going to be very hard to show it to you this way. So I'm going to show it to you a different way, because this image does have a lot of noise and it would be good to get rid of it. Sometimes another good place to see noise is in the gradients, in the blurry areas of an image. So if you guys go to 100%, I'm at 200% because I have a Retina screen and that's good too. You go to 100%. And look at this blurry bridge over here. Do you see how the dark to the light is breaking into little dots? Can you tell that? Can you guys see that? I mean, look at it in yours because you are looking at mine through a video projection, yada, yada. Look in your image. Move up to 100%, 200% if you have a retina screen, a high res screen, and then look at those gradients. Do you see that it's speckled? It's very speckled, and that speckle is also enhancing a lot of that texture that's in this man's face, but you couldn't see it because there's also real skin and hair and stuff like that, but you can see it here. So if an image, some people really love grain, that kind of thing. I personally love grain when I was doing photos and film. But in this case where we're trying to reduce some of that, ruggedness of his face, it would be good to bring the noise down. So let's head over to detail and open detail. You don't need to enhance sharpening. This thing is as tack sharp as it can get. But here we have noise reduction and color noise reduction. They are different, and I find that I usually do a lot of color noise reduction. If you do too much of it, you might change colors though, and then noise reduction depending on how much the photograph needs it. But if you want more detail than just this slider, you can open this tiny little arrow right there, and then you get more choices. But right now for this photo, I think just moving the slider is going to be enough. Keep an eye on this area where you can really notice the noise. And I'm going to start moving this to the right. And as I move it to the right and all the way to the right, have you noticed any difference whatsoever? I'm going to move to the left again, and from the left to the right. It's so subtle. It's so subtle that I'm not sure you're going to see it, but it's better to do the color noise reduction before the noise reduction, because here you can still see it. And it's so subtle. It's so subtle that I 100% fine if you guys don't notice it, but there's those dots are made out of different colors right now. And if you go all the way up to say 1600, like as far as it can get, look at the difference. Like when I go from color noise reduction to not, there's some evening out of the tones, okay? But it's very little. On the other hand, look what happens when I went back to 0. Look what happens with noise reduction itself. If I move noise reduction all the way to the right, which is extreme, look what happened to my image. It lost all those spots. It's very smooth, and this is where we started. Now in real life, if I do that to this image, and I go from, I went to fit. If I go ahead to do noise reduction and move it all the way to the right, we end up with another one of those examples where his skin begins to look like plastic, a little bit like that Detexturized did, where everything lost their texture completely. And there's no need to go that far. I'll bring it back and see how I have texture on his face again. So just go ahead and instead look at it at 100%. Let's not exaggerate. Look at part of his face and part of that texture where you can pick up the noise. And then let's start moving the noise to the right until that stuff in the background looks smooth and stops having little dots. So that looks pretty smooth to me. And now I look at the number 37. I look at his face and I go back to 0 and I see the texture on his face, and I'm losing a lot of texture on his face, but he still looks sharp. His skin still looks real. I'm gonna back it off a little bit. I think there's some in between place there. I'm gonna go up here again. So you're gonna inspect different areas that matter. And definitely what matters is his eye, his skin. Let me look on this side of his face. So I'm putting down my space bar all the time, right? To make the little hand go. And then I look up I still have some noise over here. See if I go a little bit further. Okay, and now let me see if I add some color noise reduction, if anything gets smoother without ruining his face. Which is the color noise reduction doesn't mess out. The color noise in this one is very subtle, so there's not much change. All right, so now that I've reduced the noise to the best of my ability, I'm ready to be done with this one. Did you guys see that noise? Did you see it disappear?
It was
So-
pretty minimal to start with, as far as I was concerned.
When you want to look for noise, you have to look in the dark areas, in the smooth dark areas. So normally you're looking in areas like shadow, neck shadows and stuff like that. But let me make this a teensy bit bigger. When I started playing with color on this images, when I noticed, and you guys didn't do it yet, but when I was playing with color in this image is when I started noticing the noise, because all the colors that I was trying to change got really splotchy. So that's when I said, oh, noise is a problem here. And I went in to reduce some noise. Had I not wanted to play with color on it, I would have just left it. Maybe it wasn't, bothersome enough. But from there that I'm showing you right now, see all those little dots to there? See how much smoother it got? I don't know if you can tell. So that, that's pretty noticeable. The question is, when you're doing portraits of, model looking women who are supposed to look totally perfect, you do a ton of noise reduction. Is this that person? No. So does it need all that noise reduction? Well, it depends and it affects you. And it did affect me when I went to change color. And I'm kind of preempting you on that because I already did it. But other than that, it wouldn't have bothered me as much. So I wanted to show you how to do some color noise reduction. Just get close up, move into those pixels and move into the areas that are dark and soft, like gradients like this, because you won't see it here because that noise is going to hide amongst the beard and amongst the wrinkles, but you will see it in the smooth gradients and the smooth things like skies and things like that. Okay, so now another reason I wanted you to do one of these things is so now you see how you have two different things to toggle. So now if you just want to see the before and after of your basic, you click down and you go to before and after of basic, but the detail was still affecting, or you turn noise on or off. And if you were to go here, you can just turn all at the same time on or off. All right. So let's do the last little bit in raw, and then let's take our break. So let's head over to Color Mixer. Some of you guys who are comfortable with adjustment layers are noticing that these are basically a lot of the adjustment layers that we have. And you can put, 4 adjustment layers, or you can go into raw and move 4 of these different areas of, as long as it's a global correction, this is really comfy to do it this way. All right, so I'm going to open up the color mixer. Is everyone okay? Did I lose anyone somewhere back there? Okay, we're going to open some really, really noisy images, and then you'll see the noise much easier. And once you see it much easier, you'll be able to distinguish it. So here we can adjust hue, saturation, or luminance, which is what HSL stands for. You can click on hue here to change colors, here to change saturation of the color, here to change the luminance tones of the color, which would be from dark to light. Okay, let's head down to luminance. I'm going to see the whole image now for luminance tones because I want to look for colors and luminance because I'm going to go back here. So there's 2 ways to do this. You either just kind of pick a color and start moving it around, or you could also target an area. So I can go to this little area here that looks like a little target and turn it on. So there you go. I've clicked it on, right? And now I can head over here to the blues and say, I just want to change this blue to a different color. So I can click here and notice that I'm just moving my mouse around without clicking yet. Cause see how those little circles under my mouse are picking up the tones that are going to be shifted. So I'm not going to click on anything yet, but see how here it's picking up the skin tones. Here it's picking up the colors of the sky. Here it's picking up a bit that sand, and here it's picking up a bit that sweater. So now I am going to click and drag, and I'm going to just kind of drag a little bit to the right or to the left. And now I'm making the color more purple or more aqua. So I'm kind of going back and forth on purple and aqua. Now, because this is not mask, what's happening is every single tone that looks like this blue is changing. So here's the problem with doing this in this global correction is that the sky, if I turn the sweater green, the sky is turning green, the bridge is turning green. When I turn the sweater purple, the bridge is turning purple, the sky is turning purple because there's blue everywhere. Does that make sense? That tone of blue is everywhere. So now I'm going to go ahead and I want to go back to where it was. So I'll double click on blue again, and I'm double click on purple because those are the two that got automatically changed. I could have easily have done that myself by changing this and that, but by putting the mouse on this, I'm targeting exactly the colors that are truly there. If I want to change the color of the sky, I click somewhere over here and I start going back and forth, and then I can change it. And this is what I was saying to you, that when I started changing the color of the sky, do you see now that kind of weird banding that happens there in the background? And that is partly because of all that noise that's still there.
I don't understand what you mean by the banding, Deanna.
When I'm dragging it, not when I let go, then it resolves. But right now I'm dragging it back and forth. And when I'm doing that, you can see like, move it, just move your mouse back and forth. And when you see that, you'll see kind of like lines appearing, jaggedy lines, like bricks, like little Lego brick lines, not straight lines. And if you don't see it, maybe your computer is handling it differently. But anyway, just wanted to show you that a little bit. But this is not a photo that has a lot of it. So again, it's not a good one to teach subtle things because it's got very subtle things, you know, doesn't have much in the way of things to change. All right, so now I'm not gonna do that. So I'm gonna double click again back on the blues and the purples because I wasn't gonna enhance that. So maybe what I want to do is if I don't want to change the color because everything is turning blue or green and I don't want the sky to turn blue or green, this is where if you had a good mask, you could change it. And there is a way to mask this sky here, but I'd rather teach you masking inside of Photoshop right now. So instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to just try to maybe darken or, you know, enhance the luminance tones of this blue a little bit because here it's kind of pale. So just to show you different things, I'm going to head over to, or saturation or luminance. We'll try a bit of those. I'm going to head over to luminance tones. So over here where you have hue, saturation, or luminance, I clicked on luminance, and maybe I'm going to make the blues a little bit darker. So I'm going to guard the blues and see if I can darken the blues a little bit, getting a bit more color in that sky that was a bit too white. Maybe I'm going to go into saturation and try to enhance, like saturate my blues a little bit more. So now my blues have a little bit more color. So if I want to see the before and after of what I just did to see, was it useful or not, I can click on that and turn it off and turn it on. And so you see how my sky is a little bit bluer right now. So is his sweater, okay, before and after. And that's just because I saturated the blues a bit more, and I also darkened the blues a little bit over there. Okay, maybe you can darken purples a bit since there was some purple in there. There was a mock one, that sky, you can enhance that too. You can darken that too. So basically this changes color, hue changes color, saturation intensifies the color, and luminance darkens or lightens the color. Okay. So you get to choose which one of these you want to play around with. Okay. So maybe I want to go over here and do something to these colors, which are yellows. And so do I want to darken them? Do I want to lighten them? What do I want to do? So here I'm just darkening them a little bit. So remember before we had that white streak there, maybe that works better. Maybe it distracts you more. I don't know, but careful because I'm looking at the sand. This is going great. I'm darkening the yellows. Look what's happening on his face. Why? There's a lot of yellow in his face. So I'm going to double click and put it back. So here I was focusing on this going, oh, this is doing great. This, making my beach, I'm gonna make it really dark to really show you the difference, but look where else there was yellow. His face got messed up, okay? So you have to be careful when you have global corrections like these, what is happening to the whole image, not just one part of it, okay? Which is why, if you really want to darken this, you can do it in Photoshop without affecting his face. And here you would have to do a whole complicated set of brushes. It's not worth it. All right. Last thing that I want us to do, so I'm done with color mixer. All I did was enhance the blues. And now I'm going to head over to one last thing. I'm going to head over to effects. Yeah.
Deanna, this is Dot. I just couldn't find out how you got that target where you targeted areas. What was
Okay.
it?
Right here next to, here it says adjust AHSL, and there's this little tiny kind of a target with a plus sign. You turn it on. By turning it on, it means it goes dark. And then when you hover over stuff, it lets you target it that way. When you don't want that, you just click on it and turn it off. And then now that it's kind of the color of the background, it's off. Right now, it won't do anything here. When it's on, it gets dark. And then you put it over here and it shifts stuff.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. All right, the last thing, and then we'll take our break. Let's head over to effects. And here, I just think that in this image, there's just so much bright stuff taking our eyes over to the edges. And I just kind of wanted to focus on a portrait. And other than cropping it, which we could do, another thing we can do is add a little bit of vignetting. And so down here in vignetting, I'm going to just give you an example of really extreme vignetting. Really extreme to the right gives me this white vignette. Really extreme to the left gives me this dark vignette. Somewhere in the middle, and I like very gentle vignettes. If I go to the left, just a little bit to the left between vignetting, be careful because if you go too much to the left, you start getting some of that black without detail. See how our markings is telling us? But a little bit of black down here and down there, and those little lines doesn't bug me. And if I now turn this effect on or off, I can see how it got a little bit just subtle enough that it's not really, you can't tell. I mean, if you look for it, you can tell that there's a gradient going from in there, but it helps keep your eyes inside the photo instead of heading off. It's just a tiny bit of a change. All right, so now before and after of all of it together. So I toggled, that was what we started with, and this is what we're done with. And on and off, if you're happy, and we did this all inside of RAW, any other changes we want to do, we can take this into Photoshop and keep working with very targeted areas with our masks. Okay. How's it? So let's go ahead and say, okay. And for those of you who are working in from Bridge, Thomas and Bill, at this point, you guys go ahead and say open in Photoshop. And you can open that photo in Photoshop. And now we're ready to take our break. Any burning questions though? Nope. All right.
You want us to leave and sign back on?
No, never.
Okay.
No, that's gets really confusing. Just hang on. I'll mute everyone so that there's no sound. And so what I'm going to do is look at the time. It's 10:35, so we're gonna take 10 minutes. So we're gonna do be back by 10:46, because by the time I'm done or whatever, a minute will come back by. So, oh, I didn't put a little colon in there, but you get the point. All right. It's good to leave the image anyway, because then when you come back, you might have a different opinion about whether you like it or not. It's always good to change your eyes and see it from afar. Okay, see you guys in 10. All right, I'm back. And I don't know about you guys, but I spent my entire break redoing what we just did because my VDI crashed. But this time when I opened up, it was all lost. So I just finished doing all my raw processing again. Fortunately, I have a good memory. I think I got it almost to where I had it before. So I'm ready to continue. And yeah. Is everyone back? Give me a little hi, a little wave, a little yay. Yeah, 10 minutes goes by fast. I used to give 15 minutes, but that's because remember we used to have 3.5 hour classes. Now this is a shorty. This is one that was set up for the schedule to be in person, which is 2.5 hours. And I call it shorty, but meaning 10 minutes is kind of the break for a 2.5 hour class. And so when you're out there accustomed to a longer one, it takes a while to get back. So I'm using the dulcet tones of my coffee voice to bring you back to the screens. All right. So here's the thing. What I didn't have you guys do before we took our break is to save the file. And the moment I went to work and do something on the file again, my file crashed. So Ken, are you there? Because I wanted to show you how to save the file since that was the problem you had, but I don't think you're, yeah, there you're back.
I'm back.
Okay, good. So we're all going to save this file that we put all this time working on. Okay. I have to say that I get into this bad habit when I'm teaching. When I'm working on a photograph at home, the moment I start working at it, I start saving. Like it's just automatic, but saving in class takes sometimes so much time to take everyone through all the steps that I kind of avoid it. And then I ended up using my entire break, recreating everything we had done because I hadn't saved, which is what if I had done something that I couldn't remember or that was really complicated, right? So yeah, you should always try to save as much as you can. So this file now here on the, let me get my spotlight for the mouse. So right here on the layers, now we have filters pop in underneath our layer as opposed to adjustment layers that went on top. Filters pop up underneath. And so here we have two things that pop up. This white box, which is a mask that's unused. We haven't masked any part of this image. And that's why it's all white, but it shows up. It's given to us to use. And then here we have our camera raw filter. The only two who don't have this would be Thomas and Bill, who are just starting with the flat, ready to begin to be worked on image. Let me lead us into saving this file. So we're going to go file. And even if you try to save, it won't let you because really you should be saving as, but Photoshop knows. And so if you try to just save, it'll end up opening a save as anyway. Save on your computer. As you can see, the box is still a save as because it cannot save as a JPEG. So we'll head over here and on your computer, you should save it. It should automatically be saved in the same spot that you're in if you are not on VDI. So in the same folder where you open the JPEG, now you're saving the same one as a PSD. But all those VDI people need to go up here to it says quick access and click on Google Drive. Ken, this is the portion that was a mess because there you tried to save and your computer went, no, can't do it.
Okay.
So you have to
Yeah.
go to Google Drive and then up to My Drive. Double click My Drive, which means your own drive, Ken's drive, not mine anymore. And you can put anything you want. And here I made a folder called My Photoshop Class Files, but you can have them loose or not. And in my Photoshop Class Files now, here's where I'm going to save this file. And you should be able to save yours into your drive as well as I can save it into my drive. Okay, did that work, Ken?
Yeah, I didn't try it, but let's see. So if I'm in export as, the
No,
first
no,
thing.
no. We're not exporting, we're saving.
No, no. Okay,
Save as. Export is a whole different creature. We're save as. So if you open Ketsport as, please, if you have this window open, please say, it'll open up now, say cancel. We're not exporting. We're not exporting. We're leaving this as a layered file. Exporting will always flatten the file. So we're doing save as
okay,
to create our layered file.
okay.
And then if you still have this one turned on, I keep mine on because I need to show it to students, but I would recommend clicking don't show again so it doesn't show anymore. I'll continue to show it each time. Say save on your computer. And then VDI people, you need to go to Google Drive. Google Drive. Did you get there, Ken?
Well, what I was trying to do was take my PSD file and save it as a JPEG in
Yeah,
order
but
to,
I hear you.
Yeah.
I hear you.
okay.
But first you need to save your PSD, which is what I'm
Oh,
showing you.
okay, that's the
Because
step I didn't
you-
do.
Well, I mean, you can
Yeah.
do export a JPEG from where you had, but right now I want you to save all the work we've done. Save the file correctly as a PSD, then export a JPEG from it, okay?
Okay,
So you guys didn't hear the whole confusion, but he emailed me because he was trying to put in a photo in the Padlet. But for the Padlet, you can't put a PSD, so he was trying to create a JPEG for it. But he was trying to create a JPEG exporting as, and he was exporting as into the shared drive and it wasn't working. So, oh, Liz, I don't know what's happening. You had mentioned that you had issues. She's having sound issues. Ouch, I'm sorry. Okay, you got it. I hear you. Okay. So one thing I forgot is to have you guys change your names. And someone called Galaxy Tab just told me that they had an appointment they had to leave. And now I won't be able to give that person attendance because I do not know who Galaxy Tab was because I forgot to have them change their name. I never did it this morning. So check your name to make sure your last name is on because whoever Galaxy Tab was, I don't remember because they had a black screen. And so just don't forget to give me good names. Okay. So Ken, once you get to Google Drive, did you go to my drive?
yeah, I can do that.
Do that piece.
Yeah.
Once you have that saved, okay, once it's saved as a PSD, now you can do the export as, but so you guys, you don't need to do this, but I'm just showing him, but it's the same process. Whatever choice you make here, once you say export, that export has to go to your Google Drive, my drive. So that's the process. Okay.
Right,
You
okay,
can't, that's what was missing for you. You were saving it into the shared drive, the
Okay.
JPEG. All right.
okay,
Okay. Cool. So now that one has been saved. And if this crashes again, at least I have this file instead of spending my break redoing it. And imagine if I'd worked, well, I did work hours on it, but only because I took my time explaining it. So it was easy to redo during break. But sometimes you do stuff, especially really complicated masking, that is not easy to do. All right. So let's go ahead and make a couple more changes to this image or do some more things that affect this image. I believe, well, first of all, how do you see the before and after of these changes? So over here, you have a couple different eyeballs and it's confusing what they are. So on the left side to the pixels, the eyeballs there are the eyeballs to everything. You turn this off, you turn everything off. That's not what we want. We just want to see the before and after of this camera raw filter. If you turn this one off from here, then it's easy. It goes before and after. This is what we started with. This is what we've got now. What do you guys think? Is it better, worse, incredibly better? Yeah, a bit better. What's your general opinion right now about all these changes?
Better.
Mm-hmm. Does it a good photo make? No. Does it a much better photo than before make? Yes. Right? So if you turn this little eyeball off, Turning it off is quick. Turning it on is not, because the computer has to kind of process the filter a little bit. Okay, so ideally right now not that much happened and it did it kind of quickly, but sometimes it can sit there redoing this for quite a while. So the best one to turn filters on and off from is from this little top eyeball, because I could have many filters here. Right now I only have one, and then this eyeball would turn them all on and off. If you really want to see what one filter is doing or another, then you would have to turn the little eyeballs off here, but that would mean reprocessing each time, and it's just a bit harder for the computer. All right, so you've always to see this is the on and off of the filter. All right, and so now we get to decide, well, what else do we want to do? Sue is not here right now, but earlier on she had said that this bothered her. I mentioned that this bothered me. What else would you guys, let's remember, go to Command or Control 1 and see this at 100%. Is there this shadow lightened up, but we still have, a pretty harsh shadow down here? Is there anything else that can be done to this? This was a deeper shadow than that one. Do we need to keep lightening things up with a more targeted area, or does that not bother us? What do you guys think? If you had this image, what would you want to do more to it?
I don't like that big shark fin on his forehead.
Yeah. That shark fin bugs me a little bit too. Well, not a little bit, a lot of it.
There's no
Okay.
catch lights in his eyes. I'd put maybe a little white spot in there or
Mhm.
lighten up
Yeah.
that one eye on the right.
We might still be able to lighten the eyes even a tad more, because we did a general shadow lightening. Can't go much further without beginning to ruin the texture already here. I'm not liking it too much, but can we then go a little bit lighter in there? Yeah, so that's a good point. And some, maybe a fake catch light, depending on the image, it makes sense or not to have it there. That might be good. Anything else you guys can think of? That light, this thing, the eyes.
I think
Maybe a lit-
I would want to lighten part of his right forehead
Mhm.
a bit.
Okay, so not only darken this, but lighten this.
Yeah.
Okay, maybe lighten a bit more this and maybe a little bit under his neck, right?
Mhm.
The
Yeah.
question here, and now you can do Control plus and head down here. And the question is, do we really did the computer catch any definition between his neck and his shirt? The camera catch anything there? We won't be able to tell that until maybe we can throw some curves or some levels in here to really see if there's anything there to save, or is this always going to be this murky area? Right now, it looks like a murky area. I don't know if we have any there. We would have to lighten that area. But if I lighten everything gets really light, which it was happening in RAW. So this is where we begin to understand why we need targeted corrections, okay? And for these targeted corrections, every single thing that got mentioned right now is going to be something that we need to do with masking, okay? So let's begin on some of these. I'm going to go back to, again, Control or Command 1 to get to 100%. So catching up for people who just joined us, we've discovered that we want to lighten this side of the head a bit more, darken this patch, lighten the eyes, maybe put a catch light. In fact, kind of see that there's a little spot there that's a little bit lighter. So can we turn that into a catch light? Lighten maybe a little bit more what's happening here, as long as there's definition. If there's no definition, then you want to kind of leave it there, because you don't want to just have a grayish area with no definition. So anyway, all things that are a little bit more more targeted. Okay, so let's see how we can do that. By the way, once we lighten or try to, this is going to be one of the harder things to do right here. Why? Because the rest are just areas that don't have actual edges and it's easier to do areas. This, on the other hand, has a pretty sharp white line there. So this one we're gonna soften, but it'll be hard to completely eliminate it unless we really begin to replace skin, which we can do for certain patches. Some people really don't like shiny stuff. So there's something we can do here to get rid of this shine on his nose. So we got some work that we can do there too. And for all of these things, there's masking and there's other tools like retouching and patching. So, retouching and patches is one of those tools. So there's just so much stuff we can do. I would also like a little bit to lighten up some of the deep wrinkles, darken lighten up a little bit some of the stuff that's really deep, and just lighten up the texture a tad. So let's start on some of these. The one that might be the easiest one to tackle, because as far as a mask, might be to start with this patch here, and then to darken this a little bit, and then maybe to lighten this, okay? Because there's no defined edges to that. So for learning how to do this, let's start with those, okay? So one thing we can do now is something, by the way, for those of you who've been with for a while, I haven't used curves much. Curves many times is something that's needs some more advanced knowledge, but there's a way to use curves that's relatively simple. And I want to begin to introduce you to that. Many times I just show basic level settings, which is wonderful, but curves takes it quite a few steps beyond what levels can do. So we're going to use an adjustment layer. Now, for those of you who aren't comfy yet with masking, this is going to take a little bit of just follow the instruction, and then you'll understand it as you see it happening. Okay. For those of you who are very new to Photoshop, just kind of do what I'm telling you to do. And then when you begin to see it working, you'll begin to understand it. So here's the deal. If this was something very defined, like, the pictures that we did last week, what did we do? We first selected the picture, remember the frame? And then we created an adjustment layer. Remember that? We made a sharp selection. We made an adjustment layer, and lo and behold, it worked. And let me see if I head over really quickly and open that image. Where was it? Select tools. I need to show you what I'm talking about. Okay, so let me just open this really quickly and show you what I mean as a contrast to what we're going to do now. So we made and I'm going to just do a really quick one, but I made a selection first, right? Selected the area we wanted to work on. Then we went down here, just as a reminder, what we did, we made an adjustment layer of one kind or another. In this case, I'll go for the hue saturation one. So then look what happened. The mask appeared for me because of my selection. So my selection is gone. There's no little marks, but my mask is saying that the white little bit is what I selected. So now when I change colors, the only thing that's going to change color is that area that's white. Does that make sense? So all this black part is not being affected by my adjustment layer. Got it? Okay. Now, what we're going to do today is the opposite. So I'm going to show it to you here first because it's easier to understand than on the face. These are very defined lines. So that was really a best way to do it. But if this were what I had done, meaning no selection, and the first thing that I do is I make the adjustment layer, and I'm looking at that blue stuff, and I want to turn it green. I'm turning it green. What's happening to the rest of the image? It's also being affected because my mask is not hiding anything. the mask is there, but it's all white. So the whole thing is being affected. So although this did turn green, everything else turned a crazy shade of purple, right? So the solution to this, to create that, would be to first invert my mask and make the whole mask black. Okay, so I want everyone who's new to Photoshop to be paying close attention.
Say that again, please.
Yes. So I noticed you got distracted, which is why I called you on. So here's the thing. Everything has been affected by this adjustment layer. And this is what we're going to do on the face, guys. We're going to first create the adjustment and everything is go wacky, but we need to focus on what we want to change. So in the case of the guy's forehead, we're going to make an adjustment to looking at the forehead and everything else is going to go weird. It's going to be like this. We're just going to look at the forehead and go, okay, I kind of like what's on the forehead. And then our mask is going to have to be inverted, meaning we're going to turn everything to black. So you click on here and do, and we'll do this together, where you're going to do Command or Control I, and it went black. So what happened? Now nothing is being affected. Do you see this, you guys? Now nothing is being affected because everything is black. So how do I make that green show up again only in that area? I'm going to grab a brush, and this is what we're going to do on the face. I'm telling you what we're going to do on the face. It's easier to show it here. I'm going to grab a paintbrush, and in this case, it's not going to work well, of course, because we have very sharp lines, but I'm going to grab a paintbrush and I'm going to paint some white into this mask. So this is black. I'm going to get some white paint and I'm going to open up a hole in this mask just by painting it like this. So if you look at the mask, I've made a white hole in my mask. Okay, so I've done it without doing it ahead of time. I've done it later. And this is exactly what we're about to go do on that face. We're going to first create an adjustment, then we're going to invert that mask and we're going to open up a hole in that mask. So here we go. We're going to make an adjustment that darkens this forehead patch until we think it looks similar enough to the nearby areas. Then we're going to invert that mask and then we're going to just work on that little guy. So just trust me. Now that you saw what we're doing in the other image, now we're going to do this here all together. So we're going to click without any pre-selection because there's nothing defined here to select. We're going to go to our adjustment layers. Over here, there's, unless you're in the mask or in any of these areas, you should be basically be selecting this guy right here. Go to adjustment layers and let's go to curves. Okay, I'm leaving it there to make sure everyone finds it, but let's go ahead and hit curves. How's everyone doing? Some of you guys, I haven't spoken to you today at all. Isabel, we haven't crossed words today. Maysan, people in the background, Lisa, you're all okay? Everyone's pretty quiet today?
Yeah, we're okay.
All right. So here we go. We've opened a curves adjustment layer. All right. So this has the same tools that Level has and more. I'm going to show you the easy way to use curves. Okay. Which is, see this little like finger pointing icon kind of thing. Click on it so that it goes black, right? Click on it so that it turns black right there. Okay. Now, this is going to allow me to do stuff over here and it's going to change it. So just watch. If you've never done curves, just watch. If I put my mouse over here, this is that turns this tool on. And if I click here and I drag down or up or left or right, do you see how this is a curve here that's changing? And I'm going to go up or down, different areas. I'm gonna curve, I'm gonna do weird stuff. The curve's getting wacky stuff is happening. This is where people go, oh, curves are so complicated, wacky things happening. If wacky things begin happen, just head over down to this very bottom area and click on this little return back to 0. And now we're not going to click around a lot. What just happened is because I clicked in many different areas, and so I made messes. What you need to do is just click one time in this patch and just watch, because this is the patch we want to fix. We want to be able to make it as dark as we think this is, but the whole thing is going to get darker, right? So we need to use our, our eye and go, I wonder how dark that is. I'm going to click in here and I'm going to start pulling it down and kind of gauge, is this now about as dark as that was? But you see how that got darker too. So it's going to take some testing and trying. Right now, I'm going to say, well, maybe that's dark enough. I'm going to have to guess, and then I can adjust my curve, okay? But right now, everything got darker, so everything looks wrong. Remember how in this one, suddenly everything went wacky? That's what just happened here. Everything got darker. My curve says that certain middle-ish tones, middle to lightest tones, went a bit darker, and so everything darkened with it. Okay, so here's my mask that's affecting everything. So what we need to do here is invert the selection. How do we invert it? Well, for those of you who like clicking on stuff, down here you can go to invert if you've clicked on the mask, but I preferred the shortcut, which is Control or Command, and then tap the letter I. And we're back to where we started. Now there is no correction being made. Did that work for you guys? Are we all back to black mask? Your camera isn't closing. You have to say okay to it for it to close. Karine? Oh, because Karine is writing to me direct, and so you guys don't know what she's saying.
Okay, right, but I did okay. It still won't close.
All right, so give me a second. Let me help people work on this, and then I'll have you share your screen so I can help you.
Sure.
So here I have my black mask. So once again, it's Control or Command I, and then I. It goes invert, invert. Every time I hit the I, it inverts. Okay, so hold down the Command or the Control key and hit the I. And that goes from everything is darker because of the curve to nothing is darker because of the curve. Everything or nothing, yeah? We're going to leave it in nothing. Then we're going to go grab a brush. And so the brush, the shortcut for the brush is tap the letter B on the keyboard. So we're going to grab a brush. And then we can go up here to the different sizes of our brush. Make sure you have a very, very soft 0% hardness brush, right? And you can move the size of it here, or you can just, I prefer to use my bracket keys, which is if you go to your keyboard, the letters that are near the letter P, that's the big bracket or the small bracket, or you can, that's true. Or you can move it over here. So I'm going to make a biggish brush. Okay. Yeah, maybe even bigger than that. Maybe not so big. So see, that line is hard to say on his head, but over here. And I'm going to make sure that down here I have white. Okay, so just look at it. And if it's not white, don't click on it, because if you click on this thing to make sure it's white, what's going to happen is this color picker will pop up, which we don't want. So if you did that, you have to cancel out of that, because otherwise nothing will work. You need to have white. By flipping this little double-headed arrow, it flips back, white and black and white, or you can click the X key, black and white and black and white. Once you have white, now you can go and do, remember what I did here? I went with a brush and I painted, okay, over the areas that I wanted to change. And maybe I did want this to be purple. You're just painting a hole in the mask, which over there is pretty clear. So here we're going to paint into his skin gently and then see if we got that color right. We might have gotten it right or not. We might have gone too dark or too light, and then we turn this on and off, and that kind of is taking care of that patch. So while you guys work on that, I'm gonna see if I can have, Karine, can you share your screen so I can help you get out of your camera raw?
I didn't, mine doesn't, how did you get it to change to dark? Mine just is white.
You have to have white paint instead of black
Yeah,
down here. And
it's
then
white.
in your mask, did you make a little hole in it? Is your mask now have a little white hole in it? Karine, I'm waiting for you to share your screen.
I know.
Got it? No, I know, but can I help you? Do you need a hand with that?
I'm trying.
Okay, raise your hand, Anne, everyone. I'm gonna give a hand to Karine. And then, so to share your screen, it's 2 steps. Hit the share screen button first. And then, once you've done that, you look at the bottom right and there's another share button. And that's the second share button that gets you to share your screen.
I'm sorry. It's crazy. It won't let me.
Okay, what is it saying?
Well,
When you click share screen, what does it say?
I'm not at share screen because
Oh,
I've got you on both places.
mhm.
Okay, so here we go. Let me try. Share screen.
There we go. Perfect.
Now,
Now,
see what I,
mhm.
okay, this is what's going on. This
Uh-huh.
is,
That's because you moved it without closing it. So go grab it from that white bar and move it, click and drag and move it up. Up. Yeah, even higher up. Oh, you have it too big. Okay, so then now bring it down again a little bit. Okay, and grab it from the corner, top right corner. Grab it from the top right corner and try to make it smaller. So bring your mouse in to make this a smaller window. So not to move it down. Well, just from the top then, not the top right corner, but just from the top. I saw it there working. You need to put your mouse right on the edge of that white line. Put your mouse on the edge of the white line. I don't know where your mouse went.
no, it's not going.
Okay, so put your, there, double-headed arrow, click. And now drag down.
Drag down. It's not.
You know what? Okay, stop. Just hit the okay, hit the return okay or return key on your keyboard. That's equivalent to saying okay to it. There you go.
Now what?
Good. So you got it.
What happened?
Did you hit the okay or the no? Yeah, looks like you hit the no. So you lost those changes because your camera raw didn't happen.
So where am I now?
Well, where you are is that your camera raw didn't take. I see now that you had not turned it into a smart filter because I can see that it's still not a smart filter. So that's why it didn't take. So you need to go up to smart filter. You would have to redo your camera raw. So for now, guess what? For now, just learn what I'm teaching now. And then with the video, you can redo the camera raw filter. So for now, go ahead and, no, but I wanted to lead you to it.
Oh, I'm
I
sorry.
use top. That's okay.
Where did
Just make an adjustment layer.
Where did I put you? Oh, damn. I don't know where you are.
To share again. Otherwise, while we're waiting for you to share, let me take some questions. Why don't we do this? I'll take some questions while you're looking for how to share again. Watch, because what I'm telling people right now is what I want you to do. So Maysan, what's your question?
I don't know that my screen, I cannot see that color box.
Okay.
I can share the screen.
Okay, actually, hold on, because Karine started sharing, so give me a second here.
okay.
All right, so Karine, head down to the layers pan to the area where you see the background image.
Well,
way down there. Yeah.
Yeah, it's too.
It's okay. You're fine. You're fine. Nothing's too. Go down when you see the word background. Click on that little round circle right underneath that. right, no, the next one, the one, nope, undo that. You have to do Command Z. No, you have to undo what you just did. Command or Control Z.
This one?
Yeah, but you just created a mask there that you got to get rid of. So say Command or Control Z.
I did.
No, hold down the Command or the Control key. Are you on a, you're
I
on
did.
a,
I'm on a,
okay, stop saying I did and listen. Hold down the Command or Control key, keep it held down, and now tap the letter Z for zebra. There you go. Now you undid that mask, okay? Now, go back to those icons. And that's the one. Yeah, click on that one. And now go up to curves. So for those of you who are wondering how this happened, watch again while I make her do it. Okay, while I help her do it, watch again. So if you're not seeing much difference in your forehead than the forehead as before, maybe you didn't go dark enough. So now in this panel that showed up in front of you, do you see the panel that is popping into the image? Karine, there's a panel
This
popping
one
into the
right
image.
here?
Yes, that one. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm. So go up kind of a little bit high left next to where it says RGB. To the left of the RGB, there's like a little finger pointer. Click on that one time.
okay.
Click on that. Okay, so you've turned, click on it so it turns black. Yep, one time. All right, now move your mouse into the guy's forehead. Perfect. Now click and drag your mouse down. There we go. So we're darkening everything. No, keep it down, 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 down. It's the whole image is going to look horrible. Keep it a little bit lower down. Stop. Oh, it went a bit too high, a bit too low. But never mind. It's better too low than too little. Don't click again. When you start clicking again, you start doing some weird stuff to your mask. You
Okay.
clicked twice, but you didn't do too much weird stuff. So that's good enough. Okay. Perfect. Now, take your mouse, take your hand, go down to the Control key. So
Okay.
click the Control key and now tap, click the Control key with your hand
Oh, yeah.
and then tap the letter I to invert your mask. Perfect. Now click your keyboard and tap the letter B for brush.
I did.
B for brush.
Yeah, B.
No, B, I don't think you've clicked
B
on the
as in
letter.
boy or D?
B as in boy for brush. B
Yeah.
for brush.
I am doing it.
There we go. Now you have a brush. Okay, now put your mouse over the area. Forget that panel. You can close it. And now put your mouse over the area that you just did. And you got to make your brush bigger. Okay, because you,
Over here, right?
mhm. So you can go up there. Yeah. And not that one, but that arrow. Mhm. Right there. Make it bigger. I don't know, 140. Okay, and now put it over his forehead again.
Well, shouldn't we change hardness?
It says 0%, which is
Good.
perfect. So go over his forehead and now click and drag. And you
Ooh,
are
it's too
painting
dark.
in, it's too dark, exactly. But it worked, right?
Uh-huh.
So now what you need to do is lighten it. What's that?
I said, look at this dark part. How do I fix
Yeah.
that?
So if you went overboard and you have a rim like she does, partly it's because it went too dark and partly it's because she drew more darkness over the stuff that was not dark. So the best choice is to undo. So Command or Control Z, hold down the Control and tap the Z for zebra. You need to hold down the Control and don't let it go. And then
Z.
tap the Z. There you go. And tap the Z one more time. Okay. And now with your mouse in that area, it's better if it's a bigger mouse. So make sure to go to your bracket keys, which are to the right of the letter P, and make your mouse even bigger. You can close this properties box if it's in the way. You don't need it anymore.
Where's
Yeah, that double arrow or and stop. Okay.
Oop.
Yeah, that's fine. That's more complicated, but no, whatever you
Where's
did.
the brackets?
So go to the letter keyboard, the P, letter P on your keyboard.
Mhm.
Okay, to the right of the letter P, there's your bracket keys.
Okay.
All right, so now put your mouse over his patch on his forehead and make your mouse bigger by clicking on repeatedly on the other one, not the one you're using, but the
I
other
see.
one.
Yeah, I see. Whoop,
Okay,
wait.
not so big,
Wait.
a little bit less. And now just give it one click. And now click and drag around a little bit, trying not to overlap the edges. So that, yeah, and then click a little bit to the left. So the best thing is, no, see, now you're gonna click on top of darker area of his forehead. So you're gonna do that first to kind of be more careful of the edges. And I'm hoping everyone is learning from this, not just, Corinne, how to control that a little bit. And
Should I make it
so
bigger or smaller? This
I would just start now moving to the right and brushing a little bit to the edge, but just don't overlap too much over the dark area. See, now you overlap too much. So Control Command Z again to eliminate your last one,
Okay,
and then
what
just
about
start
over
moving.
here?
Yeah.
Did I just do it there?
Yeah, so now maybe move a little bit to the left, a little bit to the, now you Command Z 2 times. Now, the issue now is that no matter how well you paint it in, you have, maybe make your mouse a little bit bigger and to give it one big click. You still then have to fix your curve, okay? So to fix your curve, yeah, click one big click there. See how that's kind of a bit better, but the color is not right, but
Where
you
do
got
we
it better.
Control the tone color.
Yeah, so now I'm gonna show you now how to fix if the color's off. Remember, you're having another issue is that you didn't do all your camera raw processing because you lost it. So
lost
you're having more of a color difference than others. I'm gonna stop your share. So I have give a chance for someone else to share and tell me what their issue is. Class is gonna be over in a few minutes. So I want everyone who is having issues to ask me. Those of you who are really comfy with what's happening, I venture to say use some of this, but in the other direction, put them out, make a new curves layer on the side of his head that was too dark, the forehead that was too dark, that Jacob mentioned it was too dark, for example, make a new curves layer, go to the side of his head with the same hand, lighten it up too much, invert the mask, and then start painting in some lightness into that side of his face, but just a little, not too much. Okay, so Neisan,
Okay.
share your screen.
Share the screen. Which ones am I in? Is this one? This,
I
don't know which one.
Okay,
is it.
so do you see the
This
big
one?
green share screen button? There we go, perfect.
So, okay.
Okay.
You show us there's a toolbox for the color,
Mhm.
and I cannot see it. I
Oh,
don't
you're
know.
right. Okay, so head up to the top of all your tools on the
Uh-huh.
left where the little house is. Go to where the little
Uh-huh.
Okay, and right underneath to the left, there's a little double-headed arrow. Yeah, click
Right.
on that. Click, there we go. Now all your
Oh,
So
that's
now
why-
see how you have both black and black. So
Black.
now to the left, a little bit down, you'll see a thing that's black and white. Click on that. There you go.
I
Now you
see.
have your black and your white. So now you
Okay.
can use a white paint on your brush and go ahead and do that. Let's watch and see how it goes. You might want a bigger brush because if not, you're gonna have issues. I recommend, okay, it's
It's
working. It's working, it's
small?
working. No, it's working. I prefer it where as long as it works, that's fine. It's working fine. Mhm. There you go. And now turn that on and off and see if you like the effect or if you want it darker or lighter, we can go and adjust the curves. You can also try to use some of this brush on that side, that line, but be careful because as soon as you overlap on the line, you're going to darken the sharp part of the sharp fin, right? So it
Mhm.
has to be much more targeted kind, and it's going to need more darkness. It's probably going to need another curve because that area is lighter. But see, guys, what she's doing to that corner there. Okay, so you can work it, but the moment, there you go. The moment you go in a little bit, it darkens, right? So
Right.
Command Z or Controller Command Z to undo it enough times so that you don't make it darker and then try again. And if not, maybe it deserves its own curve. All right.
Okay.
The
The other question,
yeah.
you see this icon is different from yours. I see. people-
That's fine. That's just because we have a different resolution. It's when you have more pixels per screen, it gives you a different icon. It gives
Okay.
me the little curves, but that's all that is. It's just more space.
So
Worry
don't
about that.
worry about that.
No.
And then I know as a class is going over.
No,
Can I have
no,
a
that's
quick
fine.
question? It's the last
course.
week's. When I go to image,
Uh-huh.
put the image size, and then if let's say I make a changes here,
Yeah.
and then once I hit OK, I
Uh-huh.
got kicked out the Adobe.
Oh, Well,
And I
that's.
try so many times and I have that issue.
Do you
and
have
then when
it?
I
Are you on
say-
VDI? No, it's your own.
No, on my own computer. Then when I say send a report and it'll say it's a known issue and ask me to reset the preference and the other things like,
Wow, so you called tech support?
no, they just like a website. They just like bring you to the website and say, this is a known issue and then this is how you
Well,
can fix it.
And
then-
change the preferences, and did you follow the instructions?
No, they didn't tell you how to change the preference. They just
Oh.
said, oh, check your preference and then check
Oh.
your GPU or something.
Okay. Well, so that basically means that they think that you don't have enough power to do whatever change you're trying to do. Go ahead and say cancel.
Okay.
And then go up to the edit. You're on a PC, right? Yeah, edit.
Uh-huh.
And
Uh-huh.
on the very, very bottom, keep going down, 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 down.
Preference, right? Uh-huh.
And then go to perform. Yeah, go up to performance
Performance,
or
yeah.
scratch discs or
Uh-huh.
performance.
So many here.
Okay, go down to scratch discs on the left. Under performance,
This one?
yeah. You don't have any scratches. Okay, go back up to performance. Available RAM 1187, ideal range. You've got it in the ideal range. You've got, I don't know, how old is your computer?
I just got it this year.
And how much RAM does it have?
Mhm.
Yeah, I can't tell from here. I'd have to go into your settings to see how much RAM you have. What
Uh-huh.
Photoshop, one of the negatives of all these advanced changes in Photoshop is they need more and more and more RAM. In particular, like a minimum of 8 gigabytes of RAM, ideally 16 gigabytes of RAM would be better. I have 32 gigabytes to make mine work because it's an older
Uh-huh.
computer. So if that's what they said was the problem, then you need to check on your RAM and add some RAM. Let's go to your system really quickly, but I know. Sound, hit scroll down. Battery, storage. I know how to do all this on a Mac so well, but on a PC.
About?
RAM, 16 gigabytes of RAM. No, you do not have a problem with your system. It's new and you have 16 gigabytes of RAM. So you need to get with tech support with Adobe because that's something that shouldn't be happening. Not with
Oh.
your RAM, not with a new computer, not with that graphic card. So yeah,
Okay.
no,
Okay, so.
you're fine. So you need to, I'm gonna stop your share. You need to get tech support from Adobe because yeah, it shouldn't be doing that. And it's not, the problem is not your computer. All right.
Okay.
Cool.
You.
So just so you know, to the question, Sue just had to leave, but yeah, you guys, when you finish working on this, you can definitely post these things up on the Padlet. Okay. Anne?
So when you are using the curves or the brush,
Yeah.
do you have it at opacity 100 and flow? 100?
Well, exactly. That depends on how, that's another of the issues. So you can have it ideally, unless, here, let me share my screen.
Because I think mine was so low that it wasn't picking up and I could hardly
Yeah.
see the dot.
Yeah. So here's the thing. When you have a brush, you make it the size you want it, right? And then there's some other very important thing, which is the opacity. So if I have it at opacity 100%, then the moment I make an adjustment, it's immediately going to 100% make that effect of that adjustment, which many times is too much because we're just kind of guessing at that curve at first. So it's safer, it's much safer to have your opacity much lower. So say 50%, 20%, 10%. When you make tiny detail corrections, you want things at 3%, and then gently paint on stuff. And it takes a while to build up. And then you get your correction. Every time you do scratch is 5%, 5%, 5%, 5%. By the time you're done, you add it up to 50%, right? I'm gonna go ahead and get rid of the changes there. But so, yeah, ideally you control the opacity. Now, right now, I kind of had everyone leave their 100% brush because it's one more thing to teach that I wasn't ready to teach. But yeah, if you know about opacity, it's better to not immediately drag on all of the changes, but to gently paint them in so that then you can graduate when you overlap that rim. So on that rim area, maybe you only do 5% and the rest you do 20%. In the middle, you do, 50% and so on and so on. Does that make sense? Like you really work with that. It looks to me like that wasn't the answer you were looking for. Anne?
I think I just need to start again with a new layer. So would I go to layer 0 and then make another adjustment layer?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll just try it.
Well, you don't have to. Do you want to share your screen so that I can
Okay.
show you with what you have? Hopefully some of you guys have worked on other parts of the image with this curves feature. There's more we can do to this, but that would be, where are you? Here we go. That would be one of the things that we need to do now painstakingly to different parts of his face. I'm waiting for you to, can you share?
I keep hitting it. I'm not
No,
sure.
the big share screen is one thing, and then you need to do another. which
Oh, I
is on the
see.
far
Yes,
right.
yes,
Yeah,
yes. Sorry. Yeah, it
No,
was
that's
off.
okay. It's all right. It just takes a couple of steps. Perfect. All right. So now, where are you? There's two things that could be wrong. One, the curves could be not big enough, or B, what you did with your mask is not big enough. So let's go and turn your light on and off first to see. Okay, so it is making a big change, see, from before and not. So that was before and this is after, so it's very different. All right, but notice that you've also made a little rim where it's darker around it, like a little crater.
Yeah.
So you're better off at this point grabbing, and this is the part that I didn't get to teach yet when everyone had to leave, but to fix that, instead of white, you need black in your brush now, and then brush around that outer rim to take away that darkness. So down there where you had white on your brush, switch it with that little double-headed arrow there to black. Cool. And now go over there and maybe with a slightly smaller brush. And I definitely prefer using the brackets than going up there all the time, because then you don't really know. Now it's gone too small. So if you go to your brackets, you can measure it right on the, no, not there. You have to leave that, because no, now you're going to have to see it by using those brackets right now. You're in the tool you left open. Yeah, so now you have to say okay to that and just say, just leave that tool, like click on the, yeah, close it. Okay, now use your brackets to make it bigger or smaller. Yeah, and now go and paint some white on those edges, but on the overlapping area. Yeah, where you had darkened it. Yeah, and then, yeah, and then you can go back in with your, now switch to white again. So you have 78% opacity is your brush, right? So you can go and paint in the middle again a little bit more. Ideally, you'd have something like 50%, 25%, 5%. So you kind of have an idea, because each time you drag, you add to that. And then 75, 78% twice is more than 100%. So you only have 2 chances to drag it before it's already as hard as it's going to get. So now look down at move your mouse out of the way for a little bit and turn your eyeball on and off. And even if it's not perfect and we know where the corrections are happening, if you don't, turn it on now. And if you look away and come back, that looks pretty good. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like you know where it is, so you're staring at it. But if you look away and look back with it on, it's like, okay, his forehead isn't a problem. Now there's all these other problems, right?
Right.
So
Okay.
there you go.
Thanks.
And the other option is to change the curves and make the curves lighter or darker. So we're going to spend a little bit more time on how to adapt curves and how to do black or white on the mask to fix things. We're definitely going to work on that next week. Okay. So, all right. Anyone else who has a question or wants to show? So I'm gonna just really quickly, since class is over, but just because I propose that you guys do it without doing it myself, I'm gonna say that if I were to want to lighten some of this stuff, I can go over here and make another curves layer, and I can put my mouse after I turn this on. in
We
this
can't see your
area.
You're
screen.
not showing your,
Oh, sorry. Let me undo that and share my screen again. So this is just what I propose that you guys do. It's not necessarily something new, but I'll tell people to look at the last few minutes of the video. So basically I'll make a new curves layer now. And I'm gonna head over here and turn this little finger thing on. And then I'm gonna go to this area that's really dark. And I'm gonna go ahead and this time I'm gonna pull upwards because I wanna lighten it. But be careful, there's only so much you can lighten before it starts looking like it's not skin anymore, but you know, you can go pretty far. I'm just gonna not go that far because I don't wanna lose all the color. Somewhere over there. And then I'm gonna inverse that mask, Command or Control I, okay? And then with the brush, I'm going to head over here and with white paint, okay? I'm going to just begin to paint and see, I think my curves were too light for the 100%. So this is, I wanted to show, if your curves are too light, you can either go and darken your curves, or I'm going to Control Z. I can also go and change, and this is what Anne was saying, the opacity. I can decide to maybe only make this 8 or 10% opacity. So now when I mark it, there's only a slight change. It's hard to tell, but I can gradually build until what I want, because if at 100%, once again, at 100%, my curves were too light. See, boom, they make this white streak. I'm going to undo that. So what I do is I make much less of my brush come through. If you're impatient, you go 25%. If you're patient, you do 10% or even less, depending on what you're changing. And then you just gently brush that wherever you want. So this might help me to lighten a bit some of those darker areas of his in his eyes. So that very light thing that I did for this curve also helps me get in there, not for the whole eye. I don't want to lighten his eye. I just want to lighten this area here. And by going again and again and again into this, and I'm going to go again and again and again, I'm making click. Every time I do this, I'm not just kind of I'm not doing one click and dragging around. I'm click, drag, click, drag, click, drag. Every time I do click, drag, it's like I'm doing a new paintbrush, click, drag, click, drag, click, drag. And so now if I turn this on and off, look, not only this will have changed, but look at in here in his eyes. See, in his eyes, I have also lightened that stuff that was in there with that same lighter curve. And so if you look at my mask, the first mask I had made was at 100%, which you can see right there. It was just all or nothing. This one, on the other hand, I'm going to show you this one, is more like layers, the same. So let me just show you here again. If I use this brush here, because it's only at 10%, I get a little bit of a change. See that? But then if I put it on again, it's another change, and on again, another change, and on again, another change, and on again. So see how every time I click, I'm making that same 10%, 20%, 30%, 40%, 50% of that correction. Does that make sense? We'll go through this again next week, especially because people have had to leave. But this is the way to use opacity, to gently have a brighter layer like this one. I made a much brighter curve than my area needed. But then with the percentages of my brush, I gently decide how much of that I put on. And then I have complete control of that. Does that make sense? Versus the first one, where I just went at 100%. I was only on or off, basically, right? So it fortunately, I was near enough to the color that it worked, but had I been too dark, I might have had the effect that Corinne had, where suddenly it was a dark splotch. So by having my brush at 10%, then I can just slowly brush it on until I'm done, and maybe 70% was enough or 60% was enough of whatever curve that had been done. Okay, you guys? So we'll talk about this, but you guys stayed on. I just wanted to show you a little bit more. We'll talk about this later. But basically with a too bright curve, I was able to lighten this, but not to that brightness, but enough that with different amounts of that, I was able to get in there a little bit more and lighten those deeper spaces. And I can keep going and click on that mask and just decide if I want to lighten even more or not, it's up to me. Then I can go into the eyes and lighten them those, but for the eyes, I'm going to need actually to make a mask just for itself. And for this, I'm going to have to use another curve because that one's not dark enough. Okay. The one I made for that is not dark enough for that. That's lighter. So I'm going to have to make one for that. I can also try if I think this is still too bright, I can try with the mask that I use for the forehead. I could try to see if I want to darken my cheeks. I don't know that I want to, but I could to even it out. It won't work for this shine though, because the shine is too bright, just like that. That's going to need its own treatment. Okay. But I do think it might help for some of this neck area, which is quite a bit brighter than the rest. So I'm going to darken this neck a little bit. So I'm just clicking and dragging. It's not one long drag. It's click and drag. As soon as you have up to 10%, you need to gently drag it over more and more and more and change the hardness. Okay, so with that, I'll let you guys play with these things. So now when I turn this on and off, not only am I darkening his forehead, but I'm also darkening that area on his neck. Okay, all right, we're gonna save this and be done for today. And Command 0.
Deanna,
And so let me just show you, this is what we started with that. And now we're at this. Okay, so it's getting better and better. Yeah.
how did you add the different curve layers?
I just go down here and make a new one. Now I'm going to add a new one
Where did you go down?
to the same where I open them from here. Okay, so down at the bottom, move my mouse where at the bottom, click on this little icon and make a new curve layer. Dot, are you seeing that down here? Where I've always make all my adjustment layers, that little circle that's half black, half white.
Oh, I guess I'm not seeing it on your screen.
Oh,
Okay.
you're not?
below.
Oh,
No.
the share.
Okay,
Someone told me the bottom piece doesn't share.
yeah.
So way
okay.
down that
Yeah,
little
it's okay,
section,
right down there. Okay,
and then
great,
curves, and I make a new
Sure.
one.
great,
So
thanks.
now I'm gonna make a new one, and I'm just gonna try
Right, okay.
that area right there. So I'm gonna just click in there and see what it takes to darken that. It's gonna take a bit more doing. I'm not sure. This might need a different treatment. I'm not sure if this is gonna work because it's such a, yeah.
So you can make a new layer from any other layer, like, or if you always have to go back to layer 0.
I'm making a new curves adjustment whenever I find that I need a different tone. So I needed a brighter one here, a darker one there, a middle one there. And a really bright one helps me with 10%, 20%. But since my darkest one here wasn't dark enough for this, I had to go ahead and make a new one for this to make it darker. And it's
So
not
if you
gonna work.
wanted to make one for saturation, you'd have to go back to layer 0, make
Yep.
an adjustment
Yeah.
layer, and
Mhm.
then make a saturation one. Okay.
Exactly. You go here
right.
and you make one for hue saturation, and then you
Okay.
saturate whatever you want,
All
which is the only part why it's nice to do everything you can do in Camera Raw, because you do it all in one. And then now, otherwise you would have had to have like a new adjustment layer for every one of the things we did in Camera Raw. Now we did it all in Camera Raw, and now we can use all of our adjustment layers for just the localized changes, right? And just as much less changes, much less layers getting in the way of each other. But yeah, each adjustment layer is a different one. So this one is to, it's a curves to dark forehead, and I'm also using it for the neck. And then this one is a curves to make a lighter side, lighter cheeks, let's say, to call it, it wasn't cheeks, but the temple or something like that. Light
Anna,
temple. Yeah.
good question. In my screen shows the the circle, the,
Yeah, someone else said that too. That's just because we have a different
okay. So
thumbnail.
it's
You
not
got, you
different?
guys have this one. And for you,
Yes.
in order to teach you, to show you, I make a bigger thumbnail. And so it gives me a bigger shape. That doesn't
Okay.
matter at all.
Okay, all right, doesn't
Don't
matter.
worry.
That was his
No.
question. Okay, thank you, thank you,
Mhm.
thank you.
Yeah. As long as it says curves, then you got a curved one and you got a curve, you know.
Okay.
Okay. All right, guys, I don't want to keep going too much because people who had to leave on time, which is
Okay,
the
bye,
appropriate
thank you.
thing, are gonna get lost. I can keep helping, but I don't want to move forward with this. So I'm gonna stop there, keep working on it, post your results. And more importantly, grab another image that you have that's kind of, you know, contrasty or shaky or bad and try to fix it and post that stuff too. All right.
Thank you.
Bye,
Bye.
everyone. See you guys in a week.